Let's get to the next phase of growth, and let's get to management and vision, and let's get to the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the change in management at Canopy. And David, I need to start with you because I think the sense is, look, you're the player who's got both the balance sheet, the sophistication in the space. You're the one that came in here, made a majority investment decision. You have 4 of 7 board seats. Was this your decision to make a change at Canopy Growth? And why? Why now?
So let's start with, so Bruce Linton was an exceptional founder. And he was exceptional because, maybe better than anybody I've ever met, he's a possibility thinker. And so what he did at Canopy was he created a wide range of capabilities for the company under the assumption that some of them would work over time. That's just the way he thinks, right? So now we think we're at a place, and it's not just Constellation, it's the entire board, believes that we're in a position now where we have to pick through those capability sets and line up the biggest profit pools with our highest probability of success and focus in those areas so that we can create the most value for our shareholders and meet that consumer need. And we think that the time is right to do that now, and so we needed a different way of thinking about the business. And I find it interesting when we put out our press release announcing the change of Bruce, and Bruce wrote his quote in the press release where he wrote, "The board decided and I agreed it was time to make a change," right? So I think we're just really well positioned as a result of where Canopy is today. And now we need to just really focus to create that value that we want to create.
How do you guys operate today? And is there any open issue here that we need to understand?
Well, look, let me just say that it was under Bruce's leadership that got Canopy to be the global leader that it is today. And we can't dispute that. And I believe in Bruce's legacy that the insight he brought around cannabinoids serving as an ingredient that can span multiple consumer product categories will probably be his longest lasting legacy that will forever fuel our strategic thinking as a company. But there's no question that Canopy is at an inflection point. We are shifting from this builder and serial acquirer mindset to, I think, what you referred to as this operational excellence mentality. And it is the time to make that switch. And with that switch necessitates a leadership change with new skills and new capabilities to help us make that change. And I agree with David, this is a pretty attractive role, and I'm confident we're going to get the right leader to take us forward. In terms of the relationship between Canopy and Constellation, I think it's incredibly strong. And people, we get asked all the time, so who's running the company? Is it the Constellation board? Is it the Canopy board?
Sure.
We only have one board.
Right.
And every board member has been absolutely stellar in guiding this company forward. I've got great relationship with the board. Mark has a great relationship with the board. Our board is generally aligned on how they see things. I think there's constructive debate from time to time, but we've got a very healthy board. So there's no fissures on the board between Constellation members and non-Constellation members. In terms of the dynamic between Constellation and Canopy on a day-in, day-out basis, what's really cool about this is, as the CFO, when I need to transfer best practices from, Constellation's tax team, it's a phone call away. If I need help on deploying an ERP system globally, it's a phone call away. If I need to speed up a negotiation with a vendor, I've got access to procurement people at Constellation. So for me, selfishly, it's been fantastic. And I know that dynamic is happening across multiple functions at Canopy. So it really has served as an accelerator to a lot of things we're trying to do.
Is there a change of strategy independent of this group that says we're focusing a little bit differently on capital allocation? And because I think that's something that the entire industry is probably going through, and as a leader, that may be a change in approach. But it's important for investors to understand that this isn't a function of these transactions that have gone on between these three companies. This may be a function of just how you guys are doing business.
immediately after the Constellation investment, every sales analyst report that we got said capital allocations are number one risk. And I agree with that. We've got this amazing war chest at our disposal. We've got the strongest balance sheet in the industry. And we are focused on optimizing that war chest to make the right acquisitions to help Canopy evolve into a global leadership. So in terms of our strategy hasn't changed. We still have aspirations to be a global leader. Since Bruce's departure, we've continued to make investments outside Canada, outside the US. We're continuing to invest in Latin America, Asia Pacific, Europe. But in each of those investment decisions, we're approaching them slightly differently. We're asking ourselves, do we have an opportunity to partner with anyone locally?
Okay.
In some cases, we do. ProCaps is a great example that we announced a couple of months ago, where in Latin America, we're not going to build a GMP facility. We're going to leverage ProCaps as our gel cap provider.
Anyone that's done business in Latin America knows sometimes you have to have a local partner.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's not worth going at it alone.
But it's not always available to us. Yeah. In this space, in this emerging industry, local partners don't always exist. So where they don't exist, we're going to invest. So then pivoting to where we're investing locally, we're taking a more cautious approach to ensure that we're building the capacity needed over the short haul to build and demonstrate the marketplace. And in doing so, we might be leaving some margin on the table. We may not have the same level of vertical integration, but we know that if we can prove the market that more capital can flow into that market to build the vertical integration that gets us to the 40, 50% gross margins that we're seeking in each of these territories. So if anything's changed around our strategy, it's being very choiceful, very methodical, and doing everything that we can to preserve capital and minimize risk.
Okay, so it sounds like capital allocation is the evolution of where the industry really has gone and where you guys have gone as a company. But there's no question that investors, we just talked about this, are very focused on profitability, and you talked about gross margin. So as we look at the last couple cycles for the company, there's been some concern about profitability. Can you talk about where the focus is and what you think is the company believes are the most important parts of this, call it income statement objective, that I think not just Canopy, not just Acreage, but the entire industry has got a magnifying glass on it right now.
Yeah, well, and this is part of the pivot that's occurred across the entire industry. The days of storytelling are over, and it's now about delivering results. Right. So at Canopy, that means that we need to demonstrate Canada as a proving ground for the rest of the world. And we believe that we're on a path to get Canada as a business unit to profitability by the end of FY21 on an adjusted EBITDA basis. We want that market to generate positive cash flow. So we're on a path to do that. We think that's critically important because for the foreseeable future, we're going to continue to invest in research and development. We've talked about the vape technology. Well, that's research and development coming to market. We've talked about some of the innovation that we've done on beverages. That's research coming to market. Well, we have other research that we're looking at doing, that we're investing in today, around clinical trials to demonstrate the effectiveness in a clinical way with THC and CBD. And we're committed to doing those trials. And if we want to continue to invest in those trials and we want to continue to invest ahead of revenue on global expansion, we need to have these interim milestones to demonstrate the profitability and the potential of this business. So Canada is our proving ground, and we're committed to getting to profitability by FY21.
Talk about some of the acquisitions. Talk about the ability of a visionary in Canada making acquisitions, setting up an asset base and an infrastructure and a blueprint for growth, and how you feel about it as someone that is funding much of that.
Yeah, so let me just kind of address the profitability point, though, because you have to be profitable in the areas you should be profitable. So if we're selling products to a consumer, we need to make money when we sell products to a consumer. We can then invest some of those profits in a way that gets us to a loss at our bottom line, but we're investing it in future growth. Constellation has been doing that for decades. And so I don't want to confuse people when we say we're driving toward profitability into thinking that we're not also interested in driving growth. And so, but I think you need to kind of separate the two components. Mm-hmm. You can't just lose money and say, well, someday I'm going to make money. Yeah, right. Now, in terms of the investments, we're as we've said earlier, we're really excited about the money that was invested to get the Acreage deal closed. We think investing in the U.S. CBD market is exactly the right thing to do at this point in time. And then some of the other things that the company's invested in over the last year or so include Storz & Bickel,
right.
who are the leader in vaporizing technology, right? They've invested in a company called EBU, which is a leader in research and innovation, right? And so building this capability set by using the capital that was infused into Canopy is exactly what we want the company to do. So we think they're executing the playbook in a way that's positioning us to be that global leader.
What are some of the strategic initiatives that are taking place that you're very excited about with Acreage in the United States at a time when this industry legalization plows forward?
Well, since our overwhelming support by both shareholder groups, we've been actively looking at what is available to us. We have a list of over 200 filed patents that we're sifting through and how to understand those brands, whether it's Tokyo Smoke or Tweed, where to deploy those in the United States, right? Because certain states have limitations, but we're actively looking where can we use it, and it's going to be a decision by Acreage where to deploy those brands, that IP or technology. And some of the technology that we're chomping at the bit to get to is in our cultivation facilities. Canopy has spent a lot of time developing some whisper quiet HVAC units. So we're incorporating that in some of our build outs of our cultivation facilities in several states currently.
Are there trial markets now that are there states that you care more about than less about? A lot of people have assessed the U.S. marketplace. We could probably do an entire segment on which markets are most interesting. But I'm just curious, people know where your core assets are.
Yes.
So as we talk about IP and bringing in this 2.0 companies working together, where do you care?
We care about a lot of states, but ones that rise to the top of the list are Florida,
sure.
Illinois, just being recreational as of January 1, so that's an exciting opportunity for us, as well as Michigan is also high basket users, so really excited about that opportunity as well. And then some of the states that are discussing recreational use or adult use but haven't really made the switch, such as in New Jersey, New York, very densely populated states. Big opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of, as Mike mentioned earlier, illicit use in globally, and New York City in particular has a big population, and converting that from an adult use would be a significant opportunity from a revenue perspective for Acreage. So, and we have a wide footprint across the 20 states that we're in that really gets us excited when you see the next evolution to adult use.
With this combination, and with again the access to the intellectual property and some of the processes and some of the things that you can go to work with now that don't violate the federal dynamic, has it changed a focus at all in terms of either products or form factors in the product base, or in a vertically integrated business, there's different parts of this chain that maybe have become more interesting, or you're going to leave for your partner to do. I'm just curious how you guys see it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely opportunities up and down the integration chain for us. So whether it's cultivation, whether it's processing or retail, there's opportunities that we're going to take advantage of. So whether it's brands and deploying Tokyo Smoke in, say, California or states, or Tweed brand, it depends. Or some of our medical states could benefit from some of the medical products that Canopy has already developed. So there's opportunities all through our value chain, and we're looking to utilize those everywhere we can, because again, the opportunity to not have to develop it and use something off the shelf is a cost savings, and that cost savings translates to value to our shareholders.
No, we're at a place in the industry where investors are demanding operational efficiency and value. We talked a little bit about this intellectual property and this operational efficiency. Can you get us into kind of the war room on how this is happening? A lot of people just know that there are companies that need to work together and become more efficient. But I'm just trying to understand a little bit about how you guys are really able to execute on this.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, looking across all the patents and all the information that we've received, utilizing whether it's brands or IP and where it fits in our framework and our life cycle and what we're building at that moment. Whether it's retail, we haven't opened up a retail location. Okay, maybe that gets a Tokyo Smoke label or a Tweed label on it. Or we have a house of brands, but using some of the Canopy brands to slot in to broaden our brand offerings. Like that is how we're looking at all the offerings that are coming from Canopy at every level, whether it's...
Has it slowed you down? Some people might say, look, this is going to happen with any two companies come together, and it would be prudent to slow down.
In some cases, it's accelerating, such as, we don't have the label on the outside of the store. Okay, we just fabricate a Tweed label. But in cultivation, where it's a longer-tailed building process, maybe a 6 to 9 month process, putting an HVAC in is not a 2-minute operation. So there is some thoughtfulness about the time that some of the goodies that we're receiving are going to take to implement. But we're moving as quickly as we can, because the sooner we complete, the sooner we can turn on the stores or the cultivation to generate revenue, and that's our objective, is to get to market as quickly as possible to generate as much revenue as we can and be number one in every market that we're in. That's our North Star, and that's what we're driving to. Yeah, as fiduciaries of our shareholder capital, it's important that we look at our entire capital stack. And as you mentioned, our equity value is not at a premium. So being cautious about when you issue equity and what you use, maybe at this point debt becomes more attractive with interest rates where they are. So that's sort of the strategy on how we think through what our M&A strategy should use, whether it's equity or debt or other securities. But that's how we focus around our M&A strategy.
And that is sensible. I began today's discussion by suggesting that every other company in cannabis dreams of assembling the footprint of brands and IP of Canopy Growth, Constellation Brands, and Acreage Holdings. I'm glad we've had the opportunity to dive a lot deeper into what makes this combination of three companies so special, this dream team. And let's address the lingering issues that a lot of investors still have about this transaction. So my thanks to David, Mike, and Glenn for answering all of these questions. This is Tim Seymour. Thank you so much for joining us.